Hello there. There are some things that I really want to talk about because there are many things that are all heavily related, and I want to explain a lot. I have a lot to say about testicles, testosterone, incels, vol cells, all kinds of things. I want to talk about many things here. And this is just kind of a rant, but I have a lot of information about certain things, more so than most people do. Because let me tell you, there has probably been nobody who has read as much about testosterone and testicles as I have. And that is because if you followed me on my YouTube channel for any great length of time, you'll know that I have been in a fight to get my testicles removed. Basically, I've been in pain for 2 years, and I thought I had help with the urologist who said he'd do the surgery. Then he backed out, and I have another appointment with someone at a different clinic. We'll see how that works out. My mom knows about this. My primary doctor knows about this. Anyone who knows me knows about this. But here's the thing. There are several things that all need to be understood. Somebody needs to understand the effects of testosterone, and they need to understand about how testosterone lowers the immune system, for example. That's one thing that I've read and listened to on many videos about. Testosterone lowers the immune system. Testosterone causes certain types of cancers to grow. And there's a lot of research on mostly non-human animals explaining how the neutered dogs and cats, and neutered is the same as castrated, where the testicles are removed, it extends their lifespan. And it was known that the eunuchs, the humans who had been castrated, who were servants of kings and rich people who had been castrated, lived longer lifespans than those who still had their testicles. So we know that testosterone lowers the immune system. It increases risks of certain types of cancers. We also know that testosterone is the major hormone responsible for people's sexual desire. The more testosterone you have in general, the more you feel like having sex. And we also know about testosterone being linked to aggression. Now, this is a lot of information for people who don't know about this, but I promise you, if you read some books on hormones, if you read books about testosterone, if you listen to videos explaining testosterone so testosterone has so many effects. It affects things like facial hair. It affects erections. It affects the amount of semen, the amount of sperm that men produce. Even women have testosterone, but it's in much smaller amounts, and men have 10 times the amount of testosterone. But here's the thing that's important to understand is people know that teenagers go wacky. Children, they start out generally all right, and boys and girls are pretty much equal. They're the same in terms of their size and physical strength and hormone levels and all that. But then when puberty comes, then everybody starts getting sexually attracted to either the opposite sex or the same sex or to who knows what else. And what's interesting about me in particular is that never happened. What was interesting is I never got the interest in sex that most people do, and this is common in people who are asexual. There are asexual people who never get an interest in sex, and then there's also what I read about chromosomes as well, because I have a book about Klinefelter syndrome, and mentioning that those with Klinefelter syndrome, where they have an extra X chromosome, sometimes don't have the same level of interest in sex. So, and then I know from a previous hormone test that I had low testosterone. But here's the thing is that testosterone causes so many effects on the brain. Testosterone, not to mention the other hormones as well, because all the hormones, not just testosterone, have effects on the brain. But here's the thing is, people's private parts produce hormones that then send signals to their brain telling them that they want to have sex, so then they go and find people to have sex with. So here's the thing is, this is another reason that it's impossible for people to have free will. I did a whole podcast on that topic with people, but free will is impossible because if you understand genetics, hormone levels, the way you were raised, past experiences, everything led to you being who you are now and doing what you do. So that's the thing to understand, is that if my hormone levels were slightly different, if I had been raised differently, perhaps if I hadn't been sexually abused when I was 2, if my chromosomes or hormones had been different, or genetics had been different in some way, then I would probably be out there having sex like the majority of people. But I'm not. And I'm glad for that, because as I've explained in my book, The Vow of Chastity, as well as many celibacy podcasts with Monique Lukens, I've explained how celibacy is the only solution to the abortion problem and the problem of procreation and new humans coming into the world who will then harm the other animals through carnism. I've explained all that, but the thing is, the only reason I am particularly gifted to be able to live the celibate lifestyle, I'm a vol cell, either a vo cell or a vol cell, a voluntary celibate. And I think it's important to mention that because I've been recently reading about incels. And incels are involuntary celibates, are people who want to have sex, but they can't find anybody willing to have sex with them. So, first world problems. But basically, because of whatever factors, whether it was the sexual abuse or whether it was all the kids who kicked me in the privates the whole time I was growing up, whether at school or church or out in the neighborhood, or whether I have Klinefelter syndrome, or who knows what other cause caused me to have less testosterone and zero interest in sex, caused me to be the way I am. Now, if I knew what caused it, then I wish I could do that for other people, because it has saved me so much trouble. The fact that I don't have a wife or kids, or a husband for that matter, if I had turned out gay, the fact that I don't have to deal with relationships because I don't want sex in the first place really helps me out. The fact that I have not reproduced means I don't have to worry about what's going to happen to my spouse, what's going to happen to my kids. I don't have to worry about a conflict of religious belief or political belief with a spouse, because there is none. I get to be alone. I get to live the life I want, so I like that. So being a voluntary celibate and asexual has saved me so much trouble in my own life. And the only thing that I'm going through now that is troubling me is the testicle pain. And I have said it before, and I will keep saying it until I get my surgery done. When I have a doctor willing to remove my testicles, then I'll be out of pain, and my testosterone will be even lower. There will still be some because the adrenal and other parts of the body produce certain amounts, but my testosterone will be even lower than it is now, which could result in, who knows, it could result in psychological and physical changes. However, I believe that because I already have low testosterone, and because I'm already not interested in sex, that I will notice very little difference in what I think and feel. But the lower the testosterone, the slower the facial hair grows, and sometimes body hair even stops growing. Like, I could do with a little bit less hair on my belly and chest, for example. What's interesting though although I did go through just enough puberty to get facial hair and some chest hair, it's not very much. And When I see my own chest compared to other men's chests, I'm like, they have 10 times as much hair as I do, you know? So clearly there's something going on here. So I did not experience a normal puberty. I've discussed with my doctor about getting tested for Klinefelter syndrome, but we're working on getting that done and seeing if my insurance will pay for it. Otherwise, I'll have to pay for that out of pocket. But I really desperately want to know if I have Klinefelter syndrome, because I feel like that would explain a lot. Because if I have Klinefelter syndrome, that would mean I have 2 X's and a Y chromosome in all my cells, which would explain why it explains the gender confusion, it explains the asexuality, it explains the altered hormone levels, it would explain a lot. But the reason I'm mentioning all this is that testosterone is something I've read about extensively. People talk, testosterone causing violence, testosterone causing people to have more sex, and in some cases to rape, because if somebody has high enough levels of testosterone, their mind will be consumed by sex. And that's all they'll think about. And in fact, you'll notice that is all most men think about. People say that men only think about sex, or men think with their penis, and they say these things, and that's because quite often it's true. They have ridiculous high levels of testosterone, and that's all they can think about. So they become obsessed with sex, and that means that'll drown out anything else. And those who want sex bad enough will go out and rape people. If they don't have somebody who's willing to have sex with them as often as they want, they'll go out and rape people. That's just what it comes down to. It's a matter of hormone levels, and it makes me very sad because most men are doomed to this life. And I wish that I could save them, because not only does it cause trouble to other people, but it causes trouble to them. So many men have ruined their lives with sex, and some women too, but you'll notice that in general men are more sexual, and that's because they have 10 times the testosterone of women on average. So it's no surprise that most rapists are men, most violent criminals are men, and the majority of people talking about sex are men. There are biological reasons for this. A lot of it has to do with testosterone, which is produced by the testicles. And so if you go out and if you go on the internet, if you read the stories of eunuchs, or you read the stories of people who have been castrated, one thing they all have in common is that they have no interest in sex, and that's because they have no testosterone. And also, being castrated makes you physically incapable of having sex anyway. So there's that aspect of it as well. And also, they don't go bald, because if you know anything about male pattern baldness, the reason it's called male pattern baldness is because specifically the high levels of testosterone cause baldness in certain people. Not everybody. There's a genetic thing, like certain people genetically are predisposed to baldness. However, even back in the 3rd century BC, if I remember correctly, what I read, is that they knew that people who were castrated before puberty never went bald. That's because without the testosterone, the testosterone cannot convert into dihydrotestosterone, or DHT, which is what shrinks the hair follicles, causing men's hair to fall out. So if you remove the testicles, you remove the sexual desire. You also remove the male pattern baldness. And so everything I've read, everything I have heard that about testosterone and testicles is all negative. So basically, having testicles removed is like the most logical thing you can possibly do. You'll live longer, you won't be thinking about sex, you won't lose your hair on your head. It's better in every possible way. So we know that the cure to the problem of rape and male pattern baldness and all kinds of things is castration. We know this, and it's done routinely to dogs and cats and even horses all the time. But why are people so hesitant to do it with humans? Well, it's quite simple. See, here's the problem. If you have testicles that function normally and they produce the testosterone that makes you desire sex, then you desire sex and you enjoy having sex. Therefore, you don't want to have your testicles removed. See, the testicles give you the desire to keep your testicles. That's what's bizarre about it, is in most cases, if somebody has testicles, it'll produce their testosterone, it'll cause them to produce semen and sperm, and have erections, and they'll have sex, and they'll like having sex, which is why they will not be willing to have their testicles removed. And in fact, most men never get their testicles removed unless they have testicular cancer, in which case they have to remove the testicles or the person dies. It's that simple. So, basically, the testicles influence your brain to make you want to keep them. So basically, it's testicle mind control. That's right. Your male private parts cause you to like having those private parts. And the only reason that in certain individuals there's an exception, like in my case, is whether it was the sexual abuse, whether it was all the times I was kicked by the pastor's kids in church, or whether it's Klinefelter syndrome and the reason, and that would, man, if I have Klinefelter syndrome, that would explain why I feel like a woman, because then I would qualify genetically as both male and female anyway. So I would kind of be a little mix of both. But anyway, I'm not trying to make this about me. The point, though, is that testosterone affects the mind, and people really are thinking with their testicle is what they're really thinking with. And so castration is like the easy solution. It's a 30-minute to an hour surgery. It takes less than an hour. The recovery time is only a few days. I've researched more about orchiectomy and castration and the effects. I've researched this more than anybody I know. Nobody has gone and read the literature of what happened to eunuchs back in the distant past and what happens to dogs and cats and how they live longer. And all these things. I've read so much about testicles and testosterone and how it influences the sex drive and all kinds of things. And there's probably nobody else that knows as much about this as I do, because nobody else has the interest. Most people don't have the type of interest to study this type of thing because, well, they have a lot of testosterone and they're just out there having sex. They don't care about why they want to have sex. Their testosterone influences them to want to have sex, and so they do. And so they don't spend time reading about castration like me. You know what I'm saying? So that's the simple reason why other people don't look at this as much. And it's quite disturbing, the things I'm finding. And I really wish that doctors were much more willing to remove people's testicles. If people, I already had a psychological evaluation, but the urologist still refused to remove my testicles. And it's like, if doctors would be more willing to castrate those men who greatly desire it and have a way to pay for it, and will sign informed consent forms, then a lot of people would be benefited, because there are so many men who are trying to, who self-harm. And I self-harmed back in the day too, especially when I was in my early 20s. I made attempts at cutting off my penis and testicles. I was not successful, and I just wish that I had had a doctor to do it for me sooner. And I'm 33 years old now, and I'm still trying to get my testicles removed. And that was brought on because it was causing me great pain. But there are other reasons too, as well. And so it's like, I know so much about testicles and the effects of testosterone, and so I really want people out there to be aware. I want you to go Google or DuckDuckGo or get on Amazon, read some books on testosterone and testicles, and find out about this stuff. look up the stuff about, what causes people to be gay or transgender and the chromosome disorders. If you understand enough about hormones and chromosomes and then the way people are raised in society, you can understand that people's sexual behavior, or in my case, the lack thereof, it can be determined. It's easy to make people asexual if you remove their testicles. That's easy. And more often than that, there are also effects that can make people infertile. There's the plastics in the water. There's the birth control pills and all the estrogen in our water supply. In fact, there was what I read about fish turning female because there was so much estrogen in the water that it was causing the male fish to start looking female and to stop producing sperm. So pollution, vaccines, all kinds of different things have been linked to infertility, hormonal changes, causing a change in sexual orientation. Like this book I read at the library. I wish I remembered the title of this book, but there was a woman, a biological female who took testosterone to become a man. And then when they took testosterone, then they became obsessed with lusting after the female body and became sexually attracted to women and wanted to have sex with women because they were being given the male hormone testosterone, And women have it too, but it's primarily considered a male hormone because men have huge amounts of it. So a person's sexual orientation can change if you change their hormone levels. So this is some very interesting stuff, and I've thought about this because, my condition specifically is that I have a varicocele on my left testicle, which is blocking the blood flow, and blood pools in there. It gets very hot and very heavy and experiences intense pain. And now most men would try a varicocelectomy where they remove the damaged vein but keep the testicles. But there are reasons I don't want that. Because first of all, that would be as much of a major surgery as removing the testicles anyway. It would probably cost the same. And second of all, I'm afraid that if the vein was removed there, sure, I might be out of pain, but then the testicles might start acting normal, and the testosterone levels that my testicles produce might increase. And if the testosterone levels that my testicles produced increased, then I might turn into a heterosexual man. And I would rather die than have that happen. I like being asexual. I like being a voluntary celibate. I like this life that I live, which is why I want my testicles removed rather than just the certain veins removed. You know what I'm saying? And because I don't want the testicles to begin with. And also, I have considered, for the past 14 years, honestly, I have considered about whether I would do, transgender hormone replacement therapy, whether I would take female hormones and have a more female-looking body. And I've considered that over time, but I also think about what that would mean, because there is a possibility that if I had enough female hormones in my system, that could actually cause me to be sexually attracted to men. It could actually cause that. So people need to be careful when messing with their hormones. And I fully believe in any surgeries or hormones that people need for transgender or other purposes. I mean, it's your body, you do what you want. If you want hormone replacement therapy, or if you want gender reassignment surgery, or in my case, orchiectomy, which is all I really care about. And that's another thing that's important to understand. See, I'm transgender, and I identify as a woman inside, but I don't want gender reassignment surgery because that involves making a fake vagina out of the scrotum skin. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not planning on having sex. I just want the pain gone and I want the testosterone gone. If anything, that will help me not have to shave as often, is what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Now, also, it is important to mention that hormone levels do have an impact on people's muscle mass and their bone density, and I know this as well. And that is why, look, whether you have your testicles or your ovaries or whatever you have or don't have, or whatever surgery you've had or not, I do recommend seeing a doctor to make sure your hormone levels are healthy. That's something we should all do. In fact, I just had a doctor appointment this past week, and we drew a lot of blood. We're going to test all my hormone levels and see if it's any different, if anything's higher or lower than it was from my test last year. So when I have the results for that, I may record a video on that just for those who are curious and as a personal record, because it's important for people to keep track of their hormone levels, because hormone levels can explain so much. Your hormone levels determine how easy it is for you to gain muscle, and your metabolism, whether you gain or lose weight. All kinds of things are influenced by hormones. So this video and this rant is really all about hormones, particularly testosterone and testicles, but hormones in general have so many effects on human behavior and that of animal behavior. And if you know much about animals, you'll know that like male elephants will kill each other and male deer will kill each other. And they kill each other because they all want to have sex with the females. And the last male of that species in that tribe that's left alive gets to mate with all the females. And now keep in mind this amounts to rape, because they're not necessarily all giving informed consent. You know what I'm saying? Male animals rape female animals out in the wild very commonly as well. And I once read a tragic story about a female duck that was gang raped by a whole bunch of male ducks. But the testosterone and the violence and the rape that's caused by testosterone affects not just human males, but males of other species. And testosterone is like the worst thing to ever exist. And it's actually a big part of why I don't believe in God or intelligent design, because it seems unfathomable to me that there would be a being that would be so sadistic that it would create all these male animals and give them all this testosterone that causes them to go and rape all these females. That would be the cruelest design. So if there is a creator that did that, then it has to be like the most evil creator. So that's just kind of what I personally believe about that as well. Because if you look into evolutionary biology, but then you compare that to creationism of the various religions, it's very interesting, but it's very sad. Nature is cruel, and there's a lot of killing and rape that happens with the other animals, not just humans. Although humans are most certainly the most dangerous species on the planet. But anyway, I don't want to go on and on about this, but I had a lot to say about testosterone and testicles and my own medical problem, and just in general, people need to learn about this. It's very sad, the effects of testosterone, and I want to get myself castrated, but if I'm ever capable of it, I want to help the other men to get their testicles removed. The men who, there are men out there who want their testicles removed and cannot find a doctor willing to do it. And so then they use dangerous methods of self-castration, and some of them die as a result. This is serious stuff. This is a matter of life and death. So this is what I had to say about testosterone for now. So I hope someone has learned something from this, because it was very depressing to talk about.